Sometimes when I play a game, I go a little overboard. I've replayed New Vegas more times than I can remember. Greatest game of all time? I don't know, but it's pretty good. So why do I keep going back after all this time? I could say that the choices really matter, that the world's fleshed out, shooting mechanics feel kinda clunky, but the feedback almost makes up for it. And the factions are incredibly nuanced. We get to see the very best and worst of humanity. I could talk about these, but it's probably best that I just show you instead, so here it is. A few ground rules before I start. I'll be using a vanilla install of the game with no mods or patches, which I would not recommend doing. For reference, here's what I usually run, and that's just bug fixes and a couple of quality of life changes. You should probably get the unofficial patch at very least, because you might run into a few problems.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Also, the version of the game I have comes with a DLC called Courier's Stash, which gives you a shitload of items as soon as you create a character. It's pretty immersion shattering when all these alerts show up telling you what items you're getting for no reason. But more importantly, it ruins early game progression by giving you some relatively powerful weapons, armors, and supplies. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. So I'll be playing through an early part of the game as 3 different characters with various motivations and skill sets to show you what's possible and how your decisions can shape the game. The setup's pretty simple. You're a courier who's making his way to New Vegas. The package is a platinum chip intended for someone named Mr. House, but you're ambushed by some tribals and a guy in a suit who shoots you in the head. Somehow you survive, and a robot brings you to a doctor. What you do and who you are from that point is entirely up to you. Cowboy Clint is a mercenary who's in it for the money. At first glance he seems pretty normal, but if no one's looking he might steal a couple of things, which might lead to the occasional kill if he knows he can get away with it. Clint likes his guns, and he likes keeping them intact. He's not too shabby with his words, but doesn't have many practical skills. He's pretty damn good with a 6-shooter though. Clint's journey is how I imagine most players will experience the game for the first time. Marie Curie is a scientific kind of gal, which won't come back to bite her in the arse, I'm sure. She tries to solve conflict without violence if possible. She's interested in finding tech and pulling it apart to understand it. Marie's knowledge of science works well with energy weapons, which she'll use to defend herself. Now, Drugs Delaney is a fucking animal. Suffice to say he's a junkie, but more importantly he's a cannibal. Finding flesh and taking drugs are his priorities, but he wants to find a tribe who will take him in. Drugs prefers to deal with problems with his bare hands, or any object he can violently swing, because he's fucked in the head. Years of drug abuse have given him a little more knowledge of medicine than you'd think, but not as much as he thinks. Clint awakens in Good Springs. Doc Mitchell gives him the standard checkup, Rorschach test, and some free stuff. Doc gives Clint some clothes and a weapon. He recommends that we speak to Sonny Smiles, up in the saloon to get him on his feet. Clint thanks him and emerges into Good Springs. This establishing shot would have been great without all these fucking DLC messages. Clint talks to Victor, the robot who dug him out of his grave. He tells us about the rescue and we learn about his seemingly unreliable memory. We enter the bar and talk to Sonny Smiles, who offers to teach us how to use a weapon. Sonny recommends that we speak to Trudy at the bar. Clint sees Trudy having an argument with Joe Cobb, a powder ganger, a gang of convicts who have escaped a nearby prison. Trudy tells us that Ringo is looking for a guy named Joe Cobb, who apparently avoided some sort of tax for moving through their territory. So now Clint has a choice. We can help Ringo and defend the town from the powder gangers, or we can sell him out and join the gang ourselves. Clint decides to help him out. He figures he's probably got more to gain by helping the town. He convinces Doc Mitchell and Trudy to help with the fight, but he doesn't have the bartering skill for Chet, and he doesn't have the explosive skill for Easy Pete. Yeah, thanks Pete. Nice one. Clint and the town successfully fend them off, and Ringo pays up as thanks for saving his life. Clint takes a hat off one of the dead powder gangers, which makes him feel right at home. Clint gets some information from Trudy about the guy who shot him. He heads south towards the town of Prim. Marie awakens in Doc Mitchell's house and starts the search for the man who shot her. Again, we dump all the DLC shit and menu through the DLC pop-ups and we're off. Marie tries on a hat, and then decides that she doesn't like it. Marie learns how to shoot from Sonny, but she's better with the laser pistol she found in Doc Mitchell's house. Marie agrees to help Ringo. She talks to Sonny, convinces Doc and Trudy to help, and fights the powder gangers. Marie gets a few mods from her laser pistol from Chet, and we're off to Prim. Drugs Delaney wakes up at the crack of noon, on Doc Mitchell's bed, with a very specific craving in mind. During the psych test, Doc Mitchell is less than impressed with some of his answers.
Sometimes when you give tests like this, you learn more than you was hoping for, and I reckon that ain't always the best thing. But I guess maybe it explains a thing or two about your predicament.
So we dump all the DLC items again, and Drugs uses a chemistry set to make some drugs, which should last us for the journey, but he takes them right away. Drugs runs into Victor, freaks out, and assaults him. He breaks into the bar storeroom and steals from the safe before introducing himself to Sonny.
Cheyenne, stay.
Before he follows her outside, he steals a pool cue. Sonny tries to teach him the basics of shooting, but he completely misses the point of the exercise. Whilst looking for things to loot in the bar, he overhears the argument with Trudy and Joe.
I'm going to get my friends.
Drugs fixes the radio and tries to haggle for a better reward, but his people skills are a bit shit. Drugs goes around the neighborhood looking for things to loot, and he runs into Joe.
What do you want?
He offers to help him to take over the town. Joe wants Drugs to kill Ringo, which he does. He returns to Joe and the plan is to shake down Goodsprings before assaulting the town. So he lies to Doc Mitchell to get supplies, using his questionable knowledge of medicine.
Alright, that does sound bad.
He also tries to shake down Chet, but it doesn't work.
Why the hell would I want to do that?
He also takes out the key members of the town to make the fight a little easier. After killing the herd, the assault on the town is comprised of Doc Mitchell and no one else. Drugs takes Drugs, charges in, and manages to decapitate Doc Mitchell with a blunt tire iron. Drugs takes the time to reflect on his actions. He even brings an old drinking buddy. So Drugs really likes that baseball bat that one of the powder gangers is holding. So he borrows it, and now we have a pretty solid weapon. Joe mentions the prison that he came from, and Drugs decides to check it out. Drugs gets a few hit jobs from Eddie.
Good.
Get him!
And he finds a hat that he really likes. And then he loots a ton of dynamite. Eventually, Drugs gets a job from Eddie, who wants him to go to Prim to see what the NCR is planning to do about the prison break.
They're up to something, I can feel it.
Clint rolls into town and talks to the NCR soldier stationed on the other side. He clears out some raiders and talks to Johnson Nash, who works for the post office. We find out about the original job that got Clint killed, and he tells us that the deputy might know where the man who shot him went. So Clint charges into the hotel and kills the raiders. Clint finds the deputy tied up and asks him about the man who shot him. Clint frees him, but he lets him know that if he tries to run, he'll kill him. Once he's free, he lets Clint know that the man went to Novak. Marie comes into town and runs into the post office to find a broken robot. She can't repair it just yet, she needs a few more components. Marie talks to Nash, clears out the raiders, hacks a terminal leading to a supply closet, and talks to the deputy, who takes advantage of her kind nature and bails on her. Oh yeah, see you, man. Marie catches up with the deputy, who asks her to bring the law back to Prim. She uses her tech skills to reprogram the robot in the casino, who becomes the new sheriff. His first action as new sheriff is to fire the current deputy. Marie runs into Malcolm Holmes, an NPC who will approach if the player has a specific bottle cap. He's become something of a meme, because he shows up like a fucking horror movie villain. He tells us about the special star bottle caps for a side quest, and then warns us that people are kinda crazy about them. After getting a lead from the former deputy, Marie heads out to Nipton to eventually reach Novak. Drugs rolls into town. He immediately heads for the NCR tents, since Eddie asked for intel. Lieutenant Hayes tells us that the NCR wants to take back the prison, but doesn't have the supplies or manpower to take it back. So he convinces them that he can help, with the intention of backstabbing them later. Drugs returns to Eddie to warn him, but it's too late. He's now stuck in the middle of an NCR versus prisoner battle. The NCR blows a big fucking hole in the side of the prison. They see Drugs and correctly assume that he's a part of the gang. During the assault on the prison, and during the head trauma that Drugs got from a stray bullet to the head, Malcolm Holmes. Not now, Malcolm, we're a little busy. Drugs retreats into the main building and fends off the soldiers with a baseball bat. All things considered, it goes pretty well. We even aggro Malcolm and kill him, which is fine. Drugs uses a stealth boy and sneak attacks the remaining soldiers and tries to kill the sergeant with VATS. But he enters a loading zone and this happens. Anyway, Drugs figures that the powder gangers are pretty much finished, so he steals their medical supplies and loots the bodies. Drugs has something of a nervous breakdown. The combination of drugs, head trauma, adrenaline, and psychosis somehow lead him to becoming a cannibal. Yeah, he might be here for a while. But this brand new habit comes back to bite him. The prisoners see him chowing down on one of their fallen brothers, and don't take too kindly to it. Now that he has a taste for blood, Drugs really can't help himself and decides to finish them off with the same dynamite they'd given him. And then he eats them. Drugs arrives in Prim to chase down the lead on the man who shot him. He sees a dead courier and realizes that no one is around. He checks the post office for anything valuable. He then finds Johnson Nash, gets a lead on the deputy, kills the raiders, eats them, and at this point he's taken some of the body parts and saving them for later. He reaches the deputy, frees him, and then he tries to run off. Drugs cleaves him, finds an audio log, and uses it like a fucking podcast as he eats him.
Fellows must be great cons. I recognize those funny helmets and leather vests from stories I've heard.
He now has his lead. Clint reaches the NCR outpost. He talks to Cass, who lets him know about some odd jobs for the NCR. Scouting mission for Ghost on the Roof and bug extermination for Jackson. She lets us know how she feels about the NCR.
NCR and their goddamn nicknames. As if Caesar himself's gonna piss and run if he hears them.
Clint kills the ants for Jackson and then heads to Nipton, which, according to Ghost, has been quiet as of late. We clear the jackals on the way and find a man and a woman shooting at each other. Clint decides to shoot him in the back, and at the same time the wind blows up his legs.
Happy feet, one more combo. That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco. Where are you at?
The woman claims that she was attacked out of nowhere, and once we turn around she goes hostile, and I think the game bugs out here because she threatens Clint and then proceeds to do nothing. Anyway, we learned from the journal that she was clearly trying to steal that guy's star bottle caps. I probably should have listened to Malcolm.
Hello there. It's good to see a friendly face.
Once we're in Nipton, Clint runs into Oliver Swank, who is overjoyed about winning some sort of lottery.
Yeah! Who won the lottery? I did!
He admits that he was formerly a powder ganger, which is enough for Clint to decide that he's not getting away. We explore Nipton and find that things are bad. Really bad. The Legionnaire, Vulpes Inculta, greets Clint. He demands that Clint spreads word about the atrocity. Then he leaves with his legion. Clint's a good shot, but fighting all of them seems a little daunting given who we're dealing with, so Clint leaves for Novak. Before leaving Prim, Marie re-examines the robot. After reading a magazine on repair, she's able to revive him. His name is Eddie, and he can be used as a portable workbench, help you fend off enemies, and eventually give you a quest after certain conditions are met. Marie asks Nash about its origins, but doesn't find out much. Marie makes her way to Nipton. She kills some bandits and hostile animals, and then makes her way towards the statues in the distance. She looks around the base, but doesn't stick around long. She's not really interested in military politics.
New face in the outpost.
On the way to Nipton, she runs into the same man and woman who are trying to kill each other. She doesn't intervene. She then talks to the guy who survives. It turns out he's the innocent one. In Nipton, she's greeted by Oliver, and she learns about the lottery. Marie checks a nearby building for clues and runs into boxcars. He gives us more context about the lottery and the Legion.
Prize for second place was I got to live, but they beat my fucking legs with hammers. I'm fucking crippled, get it?
Marie is sympathetic, so she gives him some morphine. Marie is then confronted by Vulpes. Naturally, she's appalled, but backs off after a threat. She's got some weapons and a robot, but this is a bit much. Drugs heads to Nipton. He deals with the raiders and gets to stock up on human remains. He arrives at the outpost and does some trading. He quickly realizes that the NCR hate him.
Got some nerve coming to an NCR outpost with that look about you.
Come on, give me a reason.
Which really isn't surprising considering he tried to warn the convicts about the raid, not to mention eating the corpses of both the NCR and the powder gangers. Even someone as troubled as Drugs realizes that it's probably not the best idea to be on the bad side of the NCR, so he tries to make up for his actions.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
In the middle of a morphine withdrawal, Drugs is confronted by an NCR ranger, who gives him an ultimatum.
You've got 3 days to improve your reputation with the NCR, or we come for you.
This woman really gets under his skin, but he holds back. Even he knows better. After dealing with the man and the woman fighting over star caps, Drugs freaks out seeing Oliver in gang uniform. He freaks out again seeing boxcars. He takes a quick nap, still fighting his cravings for methamphetamine, and sees some fresh bodies crucified in the streets. As per usual, Drugs really can't help himself. He rips into the flesh of a crucified man, in clear view of the Legion. And then something magic happens. There's no reaction. No one cares. Drugs Delaney is in disbelief. Clint makes his way up the highway towards Novak, takes out some Vipers and saves some traders from a Legion ambush. So now he's officially on the bad side of the Legion. He heads east to Brockflower Cave and finds a really powerful weapon. Clint reaches Novak and goes into the gift shop. He notices that no one's at the counter, so he breaks into the supply closet and steals himself a nice new handgun. Upstairs, Clint talks to Boone, a retired NCR sniper with a grudge. He works the night shift as a lookout, defending the town with his rifle. With some convincing, Boone lets us know that his wife was kidnapped and eventually killed.
Maybe it should have been.
He thinks someone in town is responsible for it.
Why are you here?
So Clint goes around town getting as many clues as he can. Clint gets a tip from a homeless guy about Jeannie Mae. So he decides to check her safe, and he finds the bill of sale for Boone's wife. At Boone's request, we stand in front of the dinosaur with the culprit. He then gives Boone the signal by putting the beret on his head. As a reward, Boone lets you keep that beret, and you can unlock him as a companion.
How did you know?
If you hate combat in this game and you'd rather have someone else do it, Boone is your man. He can do all the fighting for you and then some. The dude's a fucking animal. Clint decides to leave him be. Clint talks to Cliff Briscoe, the guy who runs the gift shop in the dinosaur. He tells him that Manny Vargas might have a lead on the guy who shot him. Manny Vargas works the day shift as a lookout, and he's willing to help us, but he has a bit of a ghoul problem.
But the only resource we got here is junk. Without that, people wouldn't have anything to trade. They'd all have to leave. We get most of it up the road from the old rocket test site, but a bunch of ghouls showed up one day and took it over. We can't get in there now. Well, they gotta go, or this'll be a ghost town before long. Doesn't matter to me what you do. As long as the ghouls are out of there, that's good enough for me.
So Clint goes to the Repcon test site. Clint clears out some feral ghouls, but the intercom gives him instructions to go to a door.
Hey, over here. Are you listening? Go to the big room on the east side of this building and take the metal staircase all the way up. And hurry. Let's hope you do. All right, Smoothskin. I'm letting you in. You better watch yourself. I'll sure as hell be watching you.
Upon entry, Clint finds out that the room contains the ghouls, so he kills them all and steals the medical supplies. They're not hostile and clearly needed his help, but time is money. And Clint is pretty keen on revenge for the hole in his head. He heads back to Manny and finds out that the man who shot him fled to Boulder City.
The guy you're looking for, Benny, he was traveling with some members from my old gang. They were going to Boulder City. It's straight up Route 93 from here. Just keep following the road north.
Marie makes her way into town and goes straight to Manny, who gives her the same mission. Marie is reasonable enough to hear out the ghouls, who are a part of some sort of cult.
Will you drive away the demons, Wanderer? Praise the Creator. Bless you, Wanderer. Bless us all.
The cult also wants to go to space using the rockets that are in the basement. So Marie clears out the Nightkin, but runs into Harland, a ghoul who isn't in the cult, but wants to find his lover, who is imprisoned by a Nightkin. But then she runs into Davison, a Nightkin taking orders from an inanimate skull. He explains that the Nightkin are there because they want to find some stealth boys. So they will leave the base if they can find them. So Marie finds Harlan's lover, who is unfortunately dead. Harlan leaves the room where the manifest is, which allows Marie to access the manifest, which states that the stealth boys were returned. She then returns to Davison, convinces him that the stealth boys aren't there, and all the Nightkin leave. She then brings the cult to the basement. They ask for parts to get the rockets working. She gets them, goes to the control room, makes some adjustments, and they're gone. That took a really long time. Starting to think that Clint had the right idea. Drugs comes across the Legion and helps them assault some merchants. He then eats them, which still doesn't get any kind of reaction from the Legion. Things are looking up.
True to Kaiser.
With that in the back of his mind, he buys a chainsaw from Cliff, who I guess just doesn't know any better. Boone takes one look at Drugs and tells him to fuck off.
If you're an enemy of the NCR, you're an enemy of mine.
Which he doesn't really take very well. He tries to get information out of Manny, but when it doesn't work, he decides to just break into his hotel room. He finds several mattresses and a computer log that reveals that Manny gave refuge to the man who shot you and his guards, who belong to the Khans, a drug-peddling tribe who are at odds with the NCR. Manny shelters the Khans because he used to be one before joining the NCR. Really makes you think, did he send them to Boulder City knowing that the man who shot you would escape, and the Khans would get captured by the NCR? Or was it intentional? Was he trying to help out his old clan? Or is he more loyal to the NCR because of his time in service? Or was it revenge against the NCR for the Bitter Springs Massacre, where the NCR opened fire on Great Khan women and children because of miscommunication? I think about this a lot. While Drugs heads to Boulder City, he is yet again confronted by the NCR hit squad. Now he's only got 1 day left.
See you tomorrow.
Clint makes his way to Boulder City, where some Khans have kidnapped some NCR soldiers and taken them as hostage. And now we have a standoff. Clint finds out that the Khans trapped in Boulder City are the same ones who escorted the man who shot him. He charges in and makes short work of the Khans, and finds Jessup's body. He now knows the name of the man who shot him. His name is Benny. So the trail leads us to the Tops, a Vegas casino run by the man himself. Clint heads north and eventually reaches Freeside, the last stop before Vegas. Unfortunately, the gate into Vegas is guarded by Securitrons, and they won't let him in unless he has a certain amount of credits. Clint is fed up at this point, so he picks off the Securitrons at a distance with his silenced rifle. And then he finally heads into New Vegas. Marie makes her way to Boulder City. She convinces Monroe that she can get the Khans to stand down. When she confronts Jessup, he gives her all the information she needs on Benny. And despite the NCR giving the order to attack, she convinces Monroe to back down. On the way to Vegas, she stops by the I-88 and notices a woman wearing a strange weapon on her hand.
Hey, so where are you headed anyway? Ooh, very exciting. Gonna strike it rich, huh? I'll be honest. You're the first person I've run across out here that looks like she can really handle herself. There are places I've never been to that'd be too dangerous for just me. What do you think? Maybe we could travel together, help each other out.
Marie is now traveling with Veronica and Eddie, which makes combat a lot easier. Marie explores the area just north of Vegas and is attacked by mercenaries. In response, she decides to burn them alive. Yeah, look, don't worry about it. It's fine. Because one of them drops probably my favorite weapon in the whole game. Marie reaches the security gate that leads into the strip. She uses her science skills to reprogram the robot. Now she can get into Vegas. Drugs is now sporting a brand new NCR beret, courtesy of Boone, who won't be needing it anymore. He heads to Boulder City, clearing out and eating whatever's in his way. He approaches Monroe, panics, kills him, eats him, and then desperately tries to convince himself that he's still alive. It doesn't work. Considering that he's now withdrawing from steroids, morphine, and intelligence pills, it could be worse. He then ends the hostage situation with a solution. Wow, that's a lot of bodies. Drugs inadvertently helps the Khans out by clearing the way. He talks to Jessup, who gladly gives him the information on Benny, and his lighter for the trouble. Drugs figures that his lifestyle has really gotten out of hand. He takes a fixer and starts to enjoy the perks of sobriety. Maybe it's time to turn a new leaf. Forget about revenge, and drugs, and cannibalism, and then suddenly...
So last day on Earth, huh? Getting your affairs in order? Or are you still trying to work on that bad reputation of yours?
After being harassed, attacked, misunderstood, judged, and marginalized by the NCR, Drugs takes every consumable drug in his inventory. That's a real shame. He was sober for about 4 minutes. After the ordeal, he makes his way to Freeside, but then he hits a roadblock. He doesn't have enough credits to get into Vegas, so he does a bunch of odd jobs, a few bounties, and tries to get a counterfeit pass from Mick and Ralph. But it doesn't work. After several hours of scraping up caps, he eventually collects enough to enter New Vegas.
Thank you, sir. You may proceed.
Clint is seeing red. Revenge is right around the corner. After busting through the Freeside gate, Victor asks him to see Mr. House, the mysterious man who was supposed to receive the platinum chip. But Clint's getting impatient. He enters the Tops to confront Benny, but is stripped of all his weapons. He's getting desperate. Clint scrapes every corner of the casino looking for any kind of weapon he can use. He takes a look at the 13th floor and tries to break into the rooms, but there's too much security. No luck. Clint goes back out to regroup. He runs into a guy calling himself Mr. Holdout. A guy selling weapons that can be hidden from security. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any guns, so he has to settle for a pair of spiked knuckles. He goes back to the Tops and sneaks the knuckles past security, but it's still not enough. He goes back to the 13th floor and blindsides a few guards with the stealth boy and his knuckles. One guard has a small 9mm pistol. Clint desperately searches the rooms for anything he can use against Benny, but finds nothing. He searches Benny's room and finds a robot, and he assumes it's some sort of weird sex thing. So he leaves. Clint figures that it's now or never. He takes out his 9mm pistol and confronts Benny.
What in the goddamn?
Benny tries to make a deal.
Let's keep this in the groove, hey? Smooth moves like smooth little babies. You want a reason? How about 4? They're called bodyguards, and every one of them is packing. Me too, so baby makes 5. Add to that, every chairman in this joint is armed, and not with some holdout pea shooter like maybe you smuggled through security. Anyhow, baby, you didn't come here for vengeance. You came to get clued in. What say you and me cash out? Go somewheres more private-like. Any questions you got, I'll answer.
But Clint goes all in, ace high.
Boys.
After killing Benny, he picks up his custom pistol and fights his way out. Clint gets his revenge, and now he can finally deliver the platinum chip to Mr. House. Marie enters the Lucky 37 on Victor's request. She meets the enigmatic Mr. House.
This meeting has been a long time coming, hasn't it? You've come a long ways, literally, and I suspect figuratively as well.
Turns out most of the events leading to this point were orchestrated by House, but Marie is really not impressed by his scheming. House then makes an offer.
One of my employees has stolen an item of extraordinary value from me, and I want it recovered. Simple enough. My only concern is the recovery of the platinum chip. What happens to Benny, I leave to your discretion. When you bring the chip to me, I will pay you 4 times the delivery bonus stipulated in your contract. How's that?
Marie takes the offer, but she isn't looking to kill Benny. Marie enters the tops and surrenders her weapons. She notices Swank, Benny's right-hand man. She lets him know about Benny's ambitious moves, which is concerning to Swank. She convinces him with evidence she gathered on the way. Swank then gives Marie the chance to search his suite, and he also gives her all of her stuff back.
In case you run into company, you dig.
Marie checks his room and finds a robot calling himself Yes Man, and he gives up the whole circus.
Hey! Hi there! Good to meet you. What can I do for you today? Sure! Benny had me look at it a bunch of times. It's a data storage device, kind of like a holotape, but a lot more advanced. As for what's on it, well... Oh! He wants to kill Mr. House and use the platinum chip to copy my neurocomputational matrix onto the Lucky 38's mainframe. That should give me control over all Mr. House's defenses, most prominently his Securitrons. And then I just do what Benny tells me. Easy peasy! I was programmed to be helpful and answer any questions I was asked. I guess nobody bothered to restrict who I answer questions for. That was probably pretty dumb, huh?
Marie heads back to Swank and gives him the lowdown. She confronts Benny, who smooth talks her into a private meeting.
That broad everyone saw go in the Lucky 38, that was you? Oh, shit. What say you and me cash out? Go somewheres more private-like. Any questions you got, I'll answer. If that's what it takes to win your trust, that's what it takes. Follow me. Now that you and me's got some privacy, I gotta ask, how is it that you're still living? House was on to me from word go? I thought I was being so clever. I guess that's enough scratching around at first base. Tell me, which way is the wind gonna blow? What I did to you was rotten, but if you think House, the NCR, or Caesar won't kill to put Vegas in their pocket, I really did blow out your brains. I know, you figured me for a creep. It's your prerogative. If you change your mind, come find me on the casino floor. In the meantime, the presidential is yours whenever you want it. Adios.
After refusing the deal, Marie lets Benny leave the room. He makes the slip and Marie is ambushed. She had every single advantage over Benny. She had an insider in Swank, all of her gear, Benny's entire plan from Yes Man, the drop on Benny in his private suite. She had both Veronica and Eddie to back her up, and she screwed it up. Benny bluffed, and she folded on a straight flush. Drugs, on the other hand, convinces Benny to meet him in private. He then kills him with a pool cue and eats him. So there's that, I guess. I didn't really think of a poker analogy for that one. And with the platinum chip in hand, he makes his way to House, who instructs him to go to Caesar's camp.
You've been a busy courier, haven't you? The next step will require you to infiltrate Caesar's camp at Fortification Hill. I want you to open a hatch in the basement of the derelict weather station atop Fortification Hill.
Drugs makes his way to Fortification Hill, and meets the big man running the Legion, Caesar himself. So there's just one more thing he needs to test, to see if Caesar is okay with...
You'll pay for that.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.